In this segment, we talk with Chris Hills about the development process and the Knightdale Development Review Committee. One of the questions that we get in the town quite often is what's coming next in Knightdale. So can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up?
Absolutely. Well, it's one of the most common questions we get, really. People want to know what's happening in our vibrant community, what's the next thing that we're going to see springing up around town. So we've got a lot of exciting projects coming. We've got a new shopping center with a movie theater attached with it. Will be a mixed-use component with residential apartment homes. So we're very excited about that project. We also have our Hampton Inn very close to opening. It's nearly completed behind the Target. And a lot of residential growth. And the most important thing probably coming up is phase 3 of Knightdale Station Park.
That sounds
with
very
a stage, amphitheater, kind of a non-residential component that will allow shops to come in front of the park and allow people to really recreate in a new way altogether, where they can go to the park, grab a bite to eat, go to an ice cream shop, things of that nature. So just really great things happening in Knightdale. Those are probably our biggest things that are coming down the pike right now.
That's great. Isn't there a Veterans Memorial as well that's coming?
Absolutely, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest components, is that there will be a Veterans Memorial tied to the plaza at the new stage. Of course, there's a lot of things that we look at when something comes to town. And a lot of people don't realize that before something is built, we spend between 6 and 12 months reviewing the plans for it and making sure that we take consideration of our existing businesses, citizens, etc. before something is ever built. The first question that comes up is whether or not the zoning is in place for the property. If the zoning is in place, it makes it a little bit more of a streamlined process. If it is not, we actually hold a public hearing and the public gets to come out and provide their input on whether or not they think it's an appropriate use in that location or not. If the zoning is in place, we have a process that's well defined that has very stringent ordinances and plans that we have to follow to make sure it meets all of our requirements before coming to construction here in town.
So now that you've told us a little bit about the development process, who are all the people in the town who are involved in this process? Who are the partners?
So it's kind of a 4-step process, and there's a lot of elements that we look at along the way, and those partners that help us, they make up our DRC, Development Review Committee. And those partners include the City of Raleigh Public Utilities Department, North Carolina Department of Transportation, town staff, which includes the Public Works Director, the town manager, police chief, fire chief, everyone in development services, just to name a few. Beyond that, we have other members that work for the county as far as sedimentation and erosion control. We have folks that work for the state that do similar functions. We have the Army Corps of Engineers who also jumps in from time to time if there's wetland impacts. If there's floodplain impacts, those items are studied as well. And so there's many partners that go into a development plan review, that there's areas of expertise that we zoom into and make sure all of the items are being addressed that need to be before anything gets built.
The DRC helps move the development review process along.
The DRC is a process that many towns employ. Knightdale is one of them. And the goal being that you bring all the partners to the table at once to help it, whether it is a developer or a private local business, which is one of our biggest constituent groups, navigate the process as quickly as possible while still meeting all the obligations to the community that have to be met.
You've told us about the development process and all that goes into it, as well as mentioning different types of businesses, and one that I'm really interested in, and I know that the town is really interested in as well, is local small businesses. Can you give us an example of a small business who's come through the process and how it was able to help them get what they need?
Absolutely. A great example of a recent business that's gone through the DRC process is Annette's Catch. If you don't know a lot about Annette's Catch, it's a local business. It started about 5 or 6 years ago, and they love Knightdale, and they found an opportunity to find a small space where they started as a seafood market. And then after a few years, they added a fresh restaurant. And now they've grown to the point where they need more space. And so what they did, the owners went out and identified parcels that might meet their needs, met with staff to help them understand what the process might be like, and from there, went forward, purchased the parcel, and is going through the development review process right now. So when you look at a very small, a smaller business like Annette's Catch, who's started in a smaller retail center, transitioning to its own standalone building now, that tends to have less of an impact than, say, a large retail center or a new subdivision. And so there's different things we look at based on the size and scope of the project. Of course, location plays into it as well. What you'll see is there's certain factors that we can control and some factors we can't. In North Carolina, property owners do have a right to develop their property in accordance with the zoning that is in place for their land. And so all we can do in that situation is hold them to the standards that are in place in our development ordinance. Knightdale is very lucky in that we have a very stringent development ordinance that has high design standards, high traffic mitigation, measures that are in place to try to make sure that any new development that comes has the smallest impact on our citizens. One of the biggest issues that we deal with is traffic. It's a constant concern. In a growing area like the Triangle, it's a concern all over our region. Whether you're talking about Knightdale, Raleigh, Cary, Wake Forest, Apex, traffic is the big word. We've been very fortunate. A lot of people in Knightdale say, we won the road lottery when 540 came through at 64 bypass, and it had a tremendous impact. For those folks who've lived here for a long time, you might remember that Knightdale Boulevard was essentially a parking lot in the morning and afternoon, depending on which direction you were going, because there was so much traffic only on those 2 lanes at the time. And so the construction of 540 and the bypass has really created some benefits and opportunities for us. But what we're seeing now is an absorption of all of that laneage that's available on those roads. And so folks are again starting to queue up on some of the secondary roads, such as Knightdale Boulevard, Hodge Road, Smithfield Road, where there's some real issues. What's interesting is a lot of that traffic is not even generated in Knightdale. You'll see that a lot of that traffic is actually generated by Johnston County, Town of Clayton, Archer Lodge, Flowers Plantation. And so there are land use decisions being made by other towns, other counties that have a tremendous impact on the town of Knightdale. And so with our development, we also seek to mitigate the impacts of those projects, because we know our citizens have a hard time sometimes even accessing roads that are adjacent to their neighborhoods. And so for us, we always look to NCDOT, our partners with the DRC, what we can do to minimize those impacts and make sure our citizens have the best use of the roads here locally that they can.
We want to thank Chris Hills for coming in and helping us understand the development process today. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next time.